What if the headlines don't tell the whole story? What if the geopolitical chess match we're witnessing is far more intricate, with hidden moves and unexpected beneficiaries than we're led to believe? The conflict in Ukraine, now well into its third year, has become a crucible, forging new global alliances while exposing deep, uncomfortable fractures within old ones. And at the heart of it all, Europe finds itself caught in a complex web of economic pressures, strategic dilemmas, and a profound reevaluation of its own sovereignty. Consider France, a nation often seen as a cornerstone of European unity. Yet beneath the surface of solidarity with Ukraine, a distinct strategic divergence is emerging. Paris isn't rushing to join every US-led initiative to procure weapons for Kyiv. Instead, France is championing a different path, bolstering Europe's own defense industrial base. This isn't just about economic nationalism. It's a calculated move towards what's known as strategic autonomy. For decades, Europe's security architecture has been heavily dependent on the United States. But as global dynamics shift, and with the specter of a less predictable transatlantic partnership looming, nations like France are pushing for Europe to stand on its own 2 feet, capable of defending itself and projecting its own influence, without constant reliance on Washington. This signals a quiet but significant recalibration of power within the Western alliance, moving beyond mere verbal support to tangible investments in European self-sufficiency. Then there's the assertive posture from the other side of the Atlantic. The recent ultimatum from President Donald Trump, giving Russia a mere 50 days to end the conflict, is more than just a political soundbite. It's a stark reminder of America's willingness to wield its economic might as a primary geopolitical tool. The threat of severe economic sanctions, not just on Russia, but on its major trading partners like China and India, underscores a strategy that seeks to isolate and cripple adversaries by disrupting global supply chains and financial flows. This approach, often termed the weaponization of finance, has profound implications for the global economy, pushing nations to seek alternatives to the dollar-dominated system and fostering a multipolar financial landscape. Russia, through figures like Dmitry Medvedev, has publicly dismissed such ultimatums, projecting an image of defiance. But the underlying pressure is undeniable, even if the immediate response is one of dismissive rhetoric. However, the real drama often unfolds behind closed doors, within the very institutions designed to foster unity. Take the European Union's attempts to impose its 18th package of sanctions on Russia. On paper, it sounds like a unified front. In reality, it's a battleground of national interests. Measures like banning Nord Stream pipelines or restricting Russian oil prices, while aiming at Moscow, ripple outwards, hitting European economies in unexpected ways. The divisions are stark. Estonia, a staunch advocate for tougher measures, insists on a lower oil price cap, driven by its own historical experiences and security concerns. Yet, for countries like Hungary and Slovakia, the calculus is entirely different. Cutting off access to Russian gas and nuclear fuel isn't just an inconvenience, it's an existential threat to their energy security and industrial competitiveness. These nations have built their economies in part on stable energy supplies from Russia, and disrupting that flow means jeopardizing jobs, attracting less investment, and potentially facing widespread public discontent. Slovakia's prime minister has openly criticized the EU's plans, labeling them manipulative and driven by an obsession with Russia rather than pragmatic economic realities. Austria and Italy, too, have voiced strong opposition to completely eliminate Russian energy imports, highlighting the deep economic entanglement that cannot be easily unwound. And it doesn't stop there. Greece, Malta, and Cyprus, nations with significant shipping industries, have actively blocked the sanctions package. Their concern is not about supporting Russia, but about the devastating impact these measures would have on their vital maritime sectors, which are heavily involved in transporting global oil. They demand coordinated action with the G7, arguing that unilateral European pressure would only harm their own economies without achieving the desired global effect. This internal discord within the EU is not merely wrangling. It reflects fundamental differences in economic vulnerability, strategic priorities, and perceived national interests, often overshadowing the collective goal of confronting Russia. Beyond Europe, the ripple effects are reshaping global trade. The NATO Secretary General's warnings to countries like China, India, and Brazil about the consequences of not pressing Russia highlight a growing frustration among Western powers. Yet these nations, often referred to as the Global South, are not simply passive recipients of warnings. They are actively navigating a complex geopolitical landscape, balancing their economic ties with Russia, their own energy needs, and their desire for a more multipolar world order. India, for instance, has significantly increased its oil imports from Russia. China continues its strategic partnership with Russia, seeing it as a counterweight to US influence. These actions are not necessarily endorsements of the conflict, but pragmatic decisions driven by national interests, further complicating the West's efforts to isolate Russia. The long-term impact of these sanctions could be a fundamental shift in global trade patterns, with new payment systems and supply chains emerging that bypass traditional Western financial institutions. And then there's the uncomfortable truth about who truly benefits. The video points out the irony of Europe paying for US-supplied weapons to Ukraine, suggesting a significant economic advantage for the United States. This perspective is reinforced by the broader economic picture. The US energy sector has seen a boom in exports to Europe as the continent scrambles to replace Russian gas, and the American defense industry has received substantial contracts. This raises a critical question. While Europe bears much of the financial burden and economic disruption, is the United States unintentionally solidifying its economic and strategic position? Adding to Europe's woes are the looming threats of protectionism. Trump's proposed 30% tariff on EU goods, if implemented, will send shockwaves through European industries. This uncertainty isn't just about trade figures, it's about disrupting long-term strategic planning and investment. European businesses, facing the prospect of significantly higher costs and reduced competitiveness, are already considering relocating production outside the EU, potentially leading to job losses and deindustrialization within the bloc. This creates a vicious cycle. As Europe struggles economically, its ability to project power and maintain unity weakens further. The overall picture is one of a fractured European response to a global crisis, where national interests frequently trump collective action. The narrative of unwavering solidarity often masks deep-seated dissent and economic vulnerabilities. Europe finds itself at a critical juncture, forced to confront its reliance on external powers, the true cost of geopolitical alignment, and the urgent need to forge a more cohesive and independent strategic identity. The conflict in Ukraine, while tragic, has undeniably accelerated a profound reevaluation of Europe's place in a rapidly changing world order. What will Europe choose? Continued dependence, or a bold new path towards genuine strategic autonomy? The answer will shape not only its own future but the balance of power for decades to come.